I don't know where to start with Joey Kenward out in Vancouver, Sportsnet 650. How you doing, Joey? Interesting times out there on the West Coast, I see.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of days here. It's sunny, for starters, to give you a quick weather update. That's been none further from the truth the last 48 to 72 hours here on the West Coast. But you hope that it's sunny days ahead for everybody. I know the storm that we just had here in BC is creeping its way across the Rockies and making their way towards the prairies, but I'm sure that'll turn from rain to snow. So here's keeping fingers crossed that wherever you're watching, that no matter what the weather conditions are, you're safe and healthy, because that's not necessarily the case for a lot of people in these parts here the last day or so.
Yeah, for sure. And we're back in a situation where sports doesn't really matter, right? Evacuation notices in Abbotsford. 20,000 customers from Vancouver Island to Kootenays without power. And it has thrown sports into disarray, but you must know people affected, Joey. You've been out there a long time.
Yeah. To put this in perspective, think of it this way. If you want to get into Vancouver right now, and if you're outside of the Lower Mainland, the only way to get here is either by water or air. Every major roadway into the Lower Mainland of BC is closed at some junction, coming from the north, coming from the east. Even some of the roadways below the border have been flooded out. That's bad news when you're talking about shipping goods on highways. I have no idea if that means rail traffic has also been affected. If you've had washouts on the highways, there's a good chance they could have occurred as well on the CN rail lines. We've had a lot of people in different parts of the province that have been stranded by mudslides on either side of them. It's gotten so bad that Search and Rescue and Canada's top rescue agency, which very rarely gets deployed in this fashion, had to bring in helicopters onto the highways to take people out of their vehicles to get them to safe area. Their vehicles are still on the highway as we speak. We're here in British Columbia, specifically in the Lower Mainland, we're used to rain. This isn't rain. This is bad news storms that we haven't seen in my lifetime. And talking to people a whole lot older than me, it's been a long time that maybe they haven't even seen torrential downpour. How that affects sports, it's interesting. The major roadways that get from the Lower Mainland up to the interior, and we're talking hockey, either for Western Hockey League teams like in Kelowna or Kamloops or Prince George, or the BC Hockey League teams that are playing throughout the interior, the Okanagan and the north. You can't get there. And if you're up there having to get back home, you're stranded. I was reading something online that the Coquitlam Express, who play in the BCHL, they're stuck in Kamloops. They can't get home. If they're going to get home and they need to get home, they're going to have to go a long route to go across the border to get back in to the Lower Mainland. And I don't even know if that's an option, because the kids and the staff probably don't have their passports on them. It's been a real tough couple of days here, inside and outside of sports for British Columbians. And you can only keep your fingers crossed that the worst is behind us.
Here's hoping, for sure. Prayers up to them, and they can restore power and people can be safe. And then it doesn't help that the Vancouver Canucks are off to, I don't know if this is the worst start in franchise history, because they've had a lot of bad starts, but they're the second worst team to only Seattle in the Pacific Division. What's the word there?
I thought you were going to bring me on to talk about Canada's soccer matchup with Mexico. But we'll do that in a bit. Because that's a biggie, Rod. That's huge. But yeah, the Vancouver Canucks have had a tough start to their year, and that's an understatement. A team that on paper should be, and I think is, better than their record where they are in the Pacific Division standings. They had a road trip to forget. After starting, a season-long 6-game road trip, not bad, playing some good hockey, came home for 7 straight at home and were not great. Now, all of the losses they had at Rogers Arena in that recent homestand, each of them was by 1 goal. So the scorelines might not be indicative of the way the team was playing. They had a chance to kind of find their game, I think, a little bit when they went on the road against 3 teams that have been playing some good hockey. Colorado, Vegas, 2 teams I think hockey fans would agree are Stanley Cup contenders, and Anaheim, which has been on a heater since they haven't played this hot in the regular season for a winning streak since Teemu Selanne was there. Well, the Canucks conceded 19 goals against in those 3 games. Now, that doesn't mean in each and every game those score lines are indicative of the way the games were tip to tail, but the optics aren't good for a team that was expected to be contending for a playoff spot in the Western Conference. It'll be really interesting to see how they respond with the upcoming homestand they've got. They've had a few days off, which I think probably is a good thing since their loss this past weekend in Anaheim. And they're back in action tomorrow here in Vancouver against Colorado. There's a lot of eyes, very interested eyes on what this team is going to do in the way of a response. And if they can't, then a lot of eyes are on this team as to what moves may or may not be made as the team trudges towards the 20-game mark.
Sure. And it's Grant in Kelowna wrote in. He's watching on Game Plus television. He wants to know what is with Elias Pettersson. And I haven't watched enough Vancouver games to say other than I do see them on opening night in Edmonton, and I'm like, they're just not that good. I'm sorry, they're just not that. He is, but maybe he's being pulled down by the collective weight of what's around him. What's your take on Elias Pettersson?
There's no denying he struggled out of the gate here. Now, keep in mind, this is a player that has been Vancouver's best scorer the last couple of years, but last season he missed more than half of the season with injury and was recovering in the offseason, was declared 100% healthy to start this year, but has had a very slow start. He's had just 3 goals through 16 games. To me, what's more alarming is the fact that he's not shooting the puck enough. You talk about a guy that signed a big money contract heading into the season that you consider, well, by average dollars, he's the highest paid forward on this team. You compare that to every other highest paid forward on each team in the league, regardless of what their AAV or actual salary is, you're expecting those forwards to shoot the puck a lot and to score a lot. Elias Pettersson's shooting percentage right now through 16 games is 6.8%. That's not very good. And this is a player that's consistently been hovering around season by season, 18 to 20% shooting percentage success rate. He's got to get going. Those around him need to get going. And like it is with so many other teams in the league, if your top guns aren't being able to find the back of the net in this competitive league, it's going to be tough to get results in the win column. There's a lot of pressure on him, but I'm sure he knows it. He knows he's got to be better. But the longer this goes, the bigger the microscope lens is on a guy like Pedersen for trying to get this team back on track.
Elliot Freeman reporting that Francesco Aquilini, Canucks owner, and GM Jim Benning will meet this afternoon. Neither individual will comment. It's to talk about the team, not a change at the position. Nobody being fired yet, according to Elliot Freeman. Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall in that room, Joey? What do you think will come out of it?
That shouldn't surprise anybody, that when the teams have the start that they've had, when they're coming off the road trip that they had, that the hierarchy of a franchise would be getting together to try to figure out what the heck is going on. So Elliot, I'm sure, is reporting fact. He usually does. And that doesn't surprise me, though, that ownership is meeting with the hockey ops department of the franchise to try to figure out what, if any, changes need to be made. I personally think that it's all needing to come from within. They're a team that, on paper, should be putting up better results, but they've stunk on the penalty kill. They have not had nearly as much success as they should have on the power play, and they've leaked far too many goals against this early on in the season. And that's not hanging it on starting goalie Thatcher Demko, who arguably has been their best player, and it's not hanging it on their top 2 defensemen, who have been, I think, pretty steady, especially 5-on-5 in Quinn Hughes and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. But collectively inside that locker room, they've got to find a way to figure it out, because if they don't, that mountain to climb just to get into the playoffs as we head towards December, that's going to be a taller mountain to climb.
Brady Leovold is watching in Muskoka, Ontario, and he says, lots has changed in Swift Current since you left, Joey. I don't know specifically what he's talking about, but I'm just passing that along, Joey.
Been a long time since I started my play-by-play career at that Civic Arena in Swift Current back in the year 2000. We've come a long way, Roddy.
Say what?
I said, you and I have come along. Like, we're going back. That's aging not only me, who just became a dad less than 3 weeks ago. That's why I'm talking to you from the baby's room here, by the way.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it. I thought I saw a crib in the back of the room and like a Fisher-Price. Congratulations, Joey. Unbelievable. What's the story?
I've welcomed in a baby boy into the world a little earlier than expected, but Jaden Jesse Kenward is going to carry the Kenward name on here on the West Coast.
Congratulations.
And you know what? Thanks. The first Canucks game that he watched with me in my arms, Canucks got a victory. So guess where he's going to be tonight? In my arms, watching Canada play at Commonwealth Stadium against Mexico for that key World Cup qualifier.
Tell me how the game goes, because I'm going to be watching Jets and Oilers and Panthers and Islanders. And listen, we got to go. We got to break. Your son named after Jaden Schwartz? Or whom?
Jayden. So
he's his own man. Okay. Thanks, Joey.
Thanks a lot. Go, Canada, go.
You gotcha. You got it. Love you, buddy. Joey Kenward joining us from Vancouver. Always a treat. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.